Galnet News Digest, 28th of June 3308. We read the news so you don't have to. In this week's news, commanders take matters into their own hands after the superpowers fail to act. And we recap the history of Thargoid interaction with humans.
The three superpowers have decided to continue supporting Salvation, despite the revelation that he is the Witch, and that Taurus Mining Ventures is formed of the research division of Azimuth Biochemicals. But a growing body of pilots have been taking matters into their own hands. The superpowers' decision is based on practicality and a lack of any viable alternatives. Having chosen to defund Aegis in the wake of allegations of mismanagement, they are now completely dependent on Salvation and his superweapon to provide an effective defence against Thargoids when the attack comes. All three superpowers have some form of anti-Xeno defence of their own, including the Alliance, which now has a defence pact with Sirius, but like Aegis, they have previously depended on independent pilots to do the majority of the fighting. Salvation's superweapon has been the only quick fix for Thargoid incursions, despite Salvation's apparent inability to use the weapon when it's most needed. It played no part in beating back the recent incursions in Novas, Sosong and Didio. Salvation is now apparently working on an improved version of the weapon that will end the war against the Thargoids. Operation Wych Hunt was established by Commanders Selene Stardragon and Psychit to take the moral high ground and to reject anti-Xeno protection from Salvation, a scientist who has been implicated in vivisection, mass murder and attempted genocide, and who arguably shaped the course of human-Thargoid interaction to ensure that it would be hostile from the start. Salvation relies on donations and support from the superpowers, but he also relies heavily on megaships owned and run by Taurus Mining Ventures, now renamed as Azimuth Biotech. By making life difficult for Azimuth Biotech, they reason, Salvation's influence may be severely reduced and his ability to deploy his superweapon may be partially curtailed. Co-founder Commander Psychit explained the operation's purpose.
Operation Wych Hunt consists of hundreds of commanders from all over the galaxy sharing a common goal: the demise of Azimuth Biotech and the rejection of everything Salvation has to offer. Our message is simple. Caleb Wycherley, you may think that you're our Salvation, but we can save ourselves.
Many hundreds of commanders are working to undermine Azimuth Biotech in the 5 systems where it has a presence. The imminent and as yet unexplained departure of the 4 Azimuth-run megaships to the HIP 22460 system, and the lack of any indication that the faction has a home system, means that it should become possible to eject Azimuth Biotech from the T-Tauri system, which has the asteroid base Hind Mine, and from Maya and Merope. Azimuth has a small presence in Karato, but following Operation Wych Hunt activity, they no longer control any resources, and their continued presence is being tolerated only to allow Operation Wych Hunt spies to infiltrate Mbuni by earning the system permit. Oni Mbuni, the permit-locked system next to Cornsar, where the first of the superweapons was constructed and disguised as basic medicines for transportation to Cornsar, is an impenetrable fortress with no other factions present, and with the one planetary base, Prospects Deep, firmly and immovably under Azimuth control. Operation Wych Hunt has been examining whether another faction could be encouraged to expand to Mbuni to make life difficult for the incumbents. Operation Wych Hunt is open to all commanders who wish to oppose Salvation's schemes.
Why does Salvation matter? It's worth stepping back for a minute and reviewing the history of Thargoid conflicts. Discoveries made over the past 18 months have completely changed our understanding of our first encounters with Thargoids and our 2 wars against them. engineer Ram Tar has recovered ancient texts recounting a war between the now extinct Guardians and the Thargoids, but humans first came across Thargoids less than 200 years ago. A geological survey team working in the Muscadark region PJ-P B6-1 system came across what we now call Thargoid barnacles and witnessed Thargoids harvesting the meta-alloys. The Azimuth Biochemicals megaship Adamastor was sent to collect an alien relic, possibly a Thargoid sensor. The ship was attacked by mercenaries, possibly belonging to the rival corporation Pharmasapien, but it was the alien relic that led to the loss of everyone on board the Adamastor. Logs recovered from a crashed ship in HIP 69200 claim that the alien artifact drove everyone on the megaship mad and caused its faster-than-light propulsion system to fail. It took almost 200 years for the ghost ship Adamastor to fly back on autopilot at sublight speed to the Chukchan system, where it was discovered in October 3306. The Adamastor's sister ship, the Hesperus, also vanished around the same time. In 3113, it had set out looking for more alien technology, like the artifact that had been loaded onto the by then missing Adamastor. Like the Adamastor, some of the crew were mercenaries, working for Pharmasapien. Almost everyone on board died in the gunfight, with just a small group of scientists able to escape on board the Anaconda Proteus. And the Proteus found what Azimuth had been looking for, a so far unique location in Trapezium Sector CW-X C1-2, the site of an ancient battle between Thargoids and Guardians, yielding Guardian crystals that could be used to create the superweapon that Azimuth had been planning. Unfortunately for Azimuth, the prototype weapon emitted a pulse of radiation that killed the entire research team, and like the Adamastor, the Hesperus and the discoveries made by the Proteus remained unknown to the rest of humanity until the Hesperus was rediscovered by the Scrivener clan Dredger in April 3307. During the long hiatus between the Adamastor and the Hesperus being lost and rediscovered, in 3125 the Thargoids attacked humanity in what became known as the First Thargoid War. Azimuth Biochemicals worked with the multi-superpower agency INRA to develop and deliver a biological weapon, the so-called mycoid virus. In a devastating attack conducted by naval hero John Jameson, a Thargoid hive ship with all those on board was wiped out, leading to the Thargoids vanishing in 3151, bringing the war to an abrupt halt. One of the masterminds behind the use of the mycoid virus, Dr. Caleb Wycherley of Azimuth, was sure that the Thargoids would attack again. When Azimuth was finally taken over by Pharmasapien, he managed to keep the research division under his control and continued to operate them as a secret organisation dedicated to the eventual elimination of the Thargoids. The history of this organisation is shrouded in mystery, but evidence has been found that Azimuth managed to capture a Thargoid scout vessel, and quite recently, in 3303 and 3304, conducted experiments with the intention of getting humans to control this alien ship. Almost all of the test subjects died. While Azimuth was conducting these tests in secret, the Thargoids started returning to human space as a result of the human colonisation of the Pleiades. The Superpowers set up Aegis as a successor to INRA, and it scored some early successes using its Eagle Eye network to anticipate Thargoid attacks, and employing independent pilots kitted out with new anti-Xeno weapons developed by Aegis to drive the Thargoids back. But the Superpowers' focus was drawn away from the Thargoids by terrorism and the threat of war between Federation and Empire, and lacking proper funding, Aegis was unable to continue delivering the necessary innovations. When the Galactic Summit ended early and without agreement in March 3307, the impoverished Aegis still had hopes that it might develop new anti-Xeno weaponry, but its megaship Alexandria, full of Guardian research materials, was sabotaged by Azimuth Biochemicals, who stole its cargo, because by that time the Adamastor, the Hesperus and most importantly the Proteus, and the evidence of its superweapon had been rediscovered, and Dr. Wycherley, calling himself Salvation but also known as the Witch, needed that Guardian technology to build a system-scale version of the weapon. In order to test his weapon, Wycherley planted Guardian technology in the Cornstar system, a system that had previously been free of Thargoids. When the Thargoids attacked 2 days later, he seems to have been indifferent to the tens of thousands of human deaths he had indirectly caused. But he was able to demonstrate that his weapon worked, destroying many Thargoid spacecraft and chasing away the rest. He's since used the weapon in 3 systems in the Pleiades, but these versions of the weapon are stepping stones to the weapon of mass destruction that he says will end conflict between humans and Thargoids forever. Aegis has been disbanded, but 2 of its former leaders, research scientist Dr. Alba Tesreau and defence specialist Admiral Aidan Tanner, have since worked tirelessly to prove that Wycherley, also known as Salvation, has been using unethical techniques, has been killing hundreds of thousands of humans as collateral damage of his campaign against the Thargoids, and, far from driving the Thargoids back, has in fact been encouraging Thargoids to attack more frequently. Admiral Tanner has been court-martialled for his attempts to reveal Salvation's sordid past, and remains in prison awaiting sentencing. Despite the revelations of Salvation's dark past, the Superpowers remain wedded to Salvation as their only way out of the Thargoid War, and they're willing to overlook his crimes. It is unclear what the future may hold. With the Azimuth biotech megaships ordered to move to the former Azimuth biochemical stronghold in HIP 22460, is Salvation preparing for a showdown? The Thargoids have not yet attacked any systems for some weeks now, and Salvation has not yet attempted to use his new larger superweapon. It seems at least possible that the truce may hold. Or perhaps Salvation will goad the Thargoids into unleashing new, more fearsome technology in retribution for his actions. We should find out very soon.
And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News, we read the news so you don't have to.